Okay, welcome to code.org, Computer Science Discoveries, Unit 3, Animation and Games. This is going to be a quick tutorial for Lesson 12, introducing the draw loop. So as we begin, just like almost every other lesson this far, we're introducing a new piece of code with a prediction request. So what we see here, familiar no stroke, that just means there's not going to be an outline for anything, and then a C green fill, which is a color, and then it says draw, and then we have a command to draw a circle at 400 for a random number, so pretty much it's saying draw it anywhere on the screen. Now this new nifty little tool is a special code.org only function called the draw loop. So when we click run, rather than just drawing one circle, we're going to see circles drawn non-stop until we click reset. And eventually, also it kind of shows, if you let it run long enough, it'll eventually cover the whole screen. You can't really tell that more circles are being drawn, but they are. So what we are learning is that this draw loop, it is classified as a function here in code.org. It is special. It's built into the code.org environment. But anything that is coded inside of this special draw function or draw loop is just going to be repeated over and over and over again until you tell it to stop. All right, the next level, we can start over. And it wants us to add code so that it draws orange and green circles. So again, I always say work smarter, not harder. I'm just going to copy those two lines of code inside the draw loop, and I'm going to paste. I'm going to change the color from green to orange is not an option, so I'll manually type in orange. And then the same thing, I'm going to draw a green circle and then draw an orange circle, and they'll alternate, and we can see them being drawn. Alrighty, there we go. Alrighty, it's moving a little slow there. There we go. Okay, so we've got another predict. So this program has one small difference. So this is a tool called the frame rate, and that will adjust how quickly the draw loop refreshes. So if you notice, again on a screen recording, not sure if every single one of my frames is being captured by the camera, but if you go in and let's say we want to change that from 5, well, let me change it, so I guess we can explore with that later, but that frame rate is going to kind of alter how quickly that loop updates. Okay, so we can change sprite properties inside the draw loop to give the illusion of movement. So this is a really cool concept. I'm going to start over. So one thing I love about the App Lab as we get to do it, it's really no different than just being a digital version of the old, if you know what I'm talking about when I mentioned a flip book. So when I was a little kid in an art class somewhere, somebody showed me that if you draw the same image over and over and over on several sheets of paper with slight differences, and then you flip through it, it looks like the whatever it is you drew is moving. That's really what's going on here in a digital sense. So right now we click run, and we have this little alien that's kind of wigging out on us. So run the code, see how it works. Discuss with your partner why some code is inside the draw loop and some code is outside. Try changing the numbers and run it again. So a few key things. Okay, you want to create your sprites more often than not. Again, there's always a example of where you could do something differently for special reasons, but you want to create your sprites outside of the draw loop. Otherwise, every single time this loops back around, it would be recreating it at the same spot, and it's going to give kind of like a smudged or blurred appearance. So this keeps it neat, crisp, and clean, but your background needs to be inside the draw loop. Otherwise, again, you would have smeared, smudged characters. So just a little tip, and where it gets a little different is obviously with a background. That is a sprite that You want it to be drawn outside of the draw loop, but yet it needs to update. So we'll kind of talk about that when we get to that example. But we have a rotation that is just getting a random number from -10 to 10 degrees. And when we click run, every frame, it's just tilting slightly, giving it the appearance of a wobble. There's not really much else to do. You could play around with this. Obviously, the closer the numbers are together, so if I did like a -2 to 2, reset and run, it's more subtle, not as much variation. If I did a -30 to 30, you're going to see some crazy wobbling. So again, the wider the range of numbers on a rotation inside the draw loop, obviously the further it's going to go back and forth. Okay, level 5. All right, this one we have a pencil and a paintbrush. All right, so this one says the animation is already updating one of the sprites properties. I already have this done. I'll just kind of explain and let you see the code there. I forget which one was initially working, probably the pencil. But again, just a reminder, the name of the sprite, that is our placeholder. This is the name of the image. If I go to my animation tab, I have a pencil image, I have a brush image. So I'm creating an object or placeholder called pencil, and then I'm setting the picture of that object to the picture of the pencil. Same thing with the brush. I have a white background, very important that I include that. If I didn't have the background, it would not go so well. So like if I accidentally forgot my background and I run, you can see how it's going to be kind of blurred. We have to have that background each time so that it gives the illusion of being drawn over it, and we don't have that smudged appearance. It looks like it's just one singular object moving, when in reality every frame it's just being redrawn in a slightly different location. Okay, level 6 are practices. We're going to go through and look at updating rotations. Again, I think I already have the code there. So for time's sake, we do have a frame rate. So a few things going on here. One, we have a black background that is drawn inside the draw loop. We set our frame rate. That needs to be set outside of the loop as well. So we do see our sprite. So we have a green alien and a pink alien. Again, probably not the best idea, in my opinion, early on to name the images and the sprites the exact same thing, just for confusion. I know some students are struggling with, which is the picture, which is the sprite, but just remember that's the sprite, that's a placeholder, that's the sprite, that's a placeholder, that's the name of the image. Once you have that down, it's certainly okay, and I do it myself to name your image and the sprite if it's not going to change in particular. Down the road, we may have some situations where we have a sprite that changes, so we don't want to always name it the same as the picture. We also set up the no stroke and the white fill above the draw loop. This technically, I do believe, could be done inside the draw loop. It doesn't really matter, but we are getting these 4, is that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4 circles, okay, at a random XY location, so 0 to 400 for the X and Y on each. They both have a width and a height of 5, meaning it's size 5 circle. Supposed to simulate stars and these aliens floating through space. So in reality, it's just a black background with 4 random circles being drawn on the screen, but it gives a cool illusion of being in space. And then we have the rotation of each alien set to update inside the loop, so there's that constant movement, okay? So whichever, I think the green alien was shaking first, you just copy that, just change it to pink alien so that it will move. All right, this one, debug the blurry sprite. This one, since it's a debug, I will start it over from the beginning so that we can see what's going wrong. So we have that sprite again, it's blurry. The trick, again, in this game lab is the animation, the illusion of movement, when in reality it's just being drawn over and over again. The issue is that we are creating and setting the animation of the blender inside the draw loop. So every time we get to a new frame, it's going to redraw it at 200, 200, and then move it. So that's why you see that smudged appearance. So we're just going to move the creation of the sprite and the animation setting above the draw loop, so it's created and set once at 200, 200, and then every frame it's going to update. But because we have the background inside the draw loop, it will draw over the previous image, and then the new updated location will be drawn. So when we click run now, it just looks like a Blender that's shaking. All right, we do have one more debug. We have a sprite that's not moving, so let's see if we can figure out what's going on with it. We click run, it's not moving. Okay, issue, couple of issues there. One, we need to draw the sprites inside the draw loop. Two, we need to move our background inside the draw loop. If we don't do that, again, we're going to have a smudged appearance. So the background also needs to be inside the draw loop. And we are good to go. Alrighty, we should be on to the lesson 12 assessment. All right, the good old salt shaker. And I think this one, does this one have the extra challenge? I don't think it does. Okay, maybe that's a challenge. So what we can do on this one, again, I already have it in so you can see it. It says add the draw loop block to the bottom of this program. It is located. Notice this is located in the world menu. We don't have a function menu yet. Eventually we will have a green menu for functions. So again, we create the sprite or the placeholder for the salt image. We then set the salt sprite with the salt image. We have a draw loop. The first thing we draw is the background, and then we update the Y location. I gave it a random value between 200 and 210 to give the illusion of that up and down shaking, and then we draw sprites. So every time this circles around, it is going to redraw it in a random Y position with a variation of 10 pixels, but it does look like it's shaking up and down. Okay, so we're going to recreate a scene here. I guess this old salt shaker one, maybe I'm thinking of a later lesson where we actually put a counter on it and change it. But this one wants us to recreate a scene. This kind of gets into some stuff we could later on use something different, but for now we'll stick with it. So mine obviously is not perfect. I have my frame rate set at 5. So the background in this case is a sprite. So we want to create it first and then set the animation of the background to the background image. And then from there, it doesn't really matter the order. I'm just going left to right, elephant, pig, cow. Create the sprite, set the location, assign the animations, and then down here, resizing. So I think this may have been preset. If not, the elephant scaled down to 0.5, which means it's 50% of the original size. The pig is scaled down to 0.3, which is 30% of the original size, and the cow is also 50%. All right, and then updating, we have our draw loop, and then we just update the elephant, pig, and cow's Y position with the random values for the elephant and the cow. Because they're a little bit bigger, and it's based on the center of the sprite, went from 150 to 200. For the pig, because it's a little bit smaller, its center is going to be slightly different. I have from 200 to 250. So as best I could, it looks like they're mostly jumping up and down on the couch. So we're close enough to the original version. All right, and then lastly, don't forget that draw sprites in the draw loop to make it update each frame. Okay, animating the rainbow snake. So we created the rainbow snake a few lessons back. All right, so for this one, again, we have a frame rate set. We create the snake head is actually an image. Everything else is a circle. So we create that, we scale it, all right, make it fit in nice. We set that location at 5200, which kind of sticks with this option. So notice we also have the snake head moving, so we'll look at how we did that. So for the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, all of those different circles are every frame, every time they're drawn, they're going to get a static X location, but the Y is going to vary by 20 pixels, so that gives the illusion of the moving up and down. All right, they all have a constant size. Right here is how we make the snake head move. So the sprite snake has properties. So just like with our images, our images are circles, we can adjust the Y property. We can do the same thing with the sprite. So down here, the snake, dot y is going to get a random number so that it moves up and down as well. So just like we can with our shapes, with our sprites, we can add that illusion of animation. All right, then lastly, we draw sprites. Okay, so for my students, typically A and B, I would say is enough of the challenge. But if you wanted to keep going, obviously there are some other options. If anybody has a question about that, feel free to reach out. But hopefully if you made it this far, if you want to pursue a challenge, it is because you want to and you kind of get how to do it. Again, though, if you need help, let me know. And this will end the video for lesson 12.